Ah, we're live, finally. um, yeah,
I will through
it
Skype.
works.
We'll go to meeting. How's that work?
Yeah, it works really well. I can hear you. Everyone can hear you as well. I'm pretty sure. After some troubles with audio and everything, we're finally ready and up. So, sorry guys for a little bit of hiccup here. For some reason, Windows updates and things like that just decided to make my life impossible. I might need to add some gain to my mic, but let's maybe start with this. I mean, we have a very special person today with us, David Levy, ladies and gentlemen, and that guy doesn't need any introduction. However, for anyone who's joining and passing by and like, who is David Levy? Maybe let's start with that, dude.
Well,
Maybe let's introduce yourself.
actually, I mean, maybe for the young audience, people don't know who I am because I've been around for a while. I usually, I come from industrial design and interior architecture, and I've been working in the entertainment industry for the last 20 plus years, I guess now. And I started in video games for a long time after studying design and architecture, and then in video games I worked on very old school stuff like Turok, but then I worked on Prince of Persia and uh, at Ubisoft. And what's the name of the other one? They're making a movie out of it now. Assassin's Creed.
Right, right.
I jumped into the movie industry where I was hired first at Disney for Tron Legacy. I was supposed to be in LA for 2 months, and I actually stayed for 2 years, and I'm still live there since then. I met my wife. I moved there, and I worked on many other movies after that. I worked on Prometheus. I worked on Tomorrowland. I worked on Ender's Game. I worked on Spectral lately. I worked on the Avatar sequels, and then now I'm a production designer at Real FX, working on a CG animated movie. Here we go.
Dude,
So
hell yeah.
where, where you said that maybe some people may have some questions at time. Where can I see that? Is it through
I'll
YouTube?
pay
Yeah.
attention. You can if you go to the Art Cafe event, the YouTube link. I'll actually send it to you. Give me a second. Basically, if you just go there,
Yeah,
you'll be able to see all the
got it.
questions. But I'll pay
Yeah,
attention.
no worries. Yeah,
I'll see what people
just to make
say
sure
and
some people can see my screen through Skype or through
go to meetings. Yeah,
from the meetings. Okay,
everyone can see your Facebook and
so
your
everybody can see
logins and everything.
my yeah. So I can't log in onto my bank account or anything like that. Got it.
No, I mean we're sharing screens in hopes of seeing some awesomeness.
I
Awesomeness from
started with
you.
Skype. So let me see. Did you send to me through Skype or?
Yeah, there
Oh,
we
here
go.
we go.
There's the link. Just make sure you mute it so that
Yeah.
doesn't do a double
Oh,
audio
got
on the
it.
way. So, but I'll pay attention to questions, guys. You can always ask questions at any time. I'll leave them towards the end so we have like an uninterrupted conversation at least. And yeah, so dude, so I met you. I think we met online for the first time, where we started talking. Or actually, no, we actually met on a dinner for Ender's Game premiere.
That's true.
That's where we actually started talking for the
Yeah. So
first time.
well, let me check once again because someone says that my volume is super high.
Yeah,
So
let me make sure that I can fix that real quick.
yeah, you can do it on your side.
Yeah, I'll do it on my side.
Cool. Can you hear me? Blah 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 blah. Do you want me to speak so you can adjust the volume? Blah 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 blah.
All good.
Blah 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 blah. Yay. Attends, someone's asking me a question.
Probably better now.
Uh, can you hear me correctly now? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's much better now.
Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Cuckoo. All right, dude. So yeah, we met during the like on that dinner. I think it was
Yep.
Ash who organized, or it was not Ash who organized the dinner. It was just like invited me there, just randomly, like, hey, dude, I'm doing this, and let's go. And then I sit down and like, oh shit, that's David Levy. um, so that's where I met you. But we've been talking, or actually, I knew you from the internet for like a long time. You were one of the OGs on the Siegen forums, isn't it?
Like, I was there during the gold years, Decision Forum, and I was attracted there. I mean, it was one of the first artist forum, basically, and I was attracted there by first of all Craig Mullins. It
Oh,
was
of course.
it was the beginnings of Craig Mullins being present online, and so it was totally, for us young speed painters, it was super attractive, to have a god online. Was the first time it ever happens. And now, I mean, things have changed a lot.
Yeah, it
Things
did.
have changed a lot, and everybody now has access to all the superstars and stuff like that. But for me at the time, it was just okay. I felt like I was finally able to paint alongside, I don't know, like a classical painter, which I really consider him to be really one of those
I, I
legends.
I think he's more than that, really. he's he's true legend. I think Siegen. I mean, Siegen turned to be mostly speed painting thread. That's where people were going to in the most cases.
Yeah,
And it was just all because of him. It's so funny. Yeah, that guy is a legend. But for me, it was striking and really interesting and really fun to be in that crowd because it was just such an inspiring environment. Like seeing all the badass artists, uh, all the people that were just starting and learning, and like all of them contributing in this one mega thread with like thousands of pages. And like every day you would go in, it was sketches, like all the every day, right? It was like so many pages of sketches. It's almost like looking at ArtStation, but just in terms of forums.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and I think that in some ways, I mean, it's not in some ways. I mean, obviously, for Facebook and stuff like ArtStation have killed forums, And I think now there's something that's missing, where there's not like a place where people can really connect and really exchange more information, as opposed to just look at each other's job and then just try to stay on top of everything. Things have changed a lot, I think, and I think there's something that's maybe lacking nowadays.
Right,
Like,
right.
and just
Um, it's different, isn't it? I mean, it used to be that you would go on forums and it was more about conversations. These days, it's like it's almost like you share, you get likes, and you move on.
yeah, no, exactly. Get likes, you move on, and then what software do you use? Okay, do you have a Gumroad? No. Okay, bye.
That's so funny, dude.
Yeah.
Um, hey, hold on. For some reason, the screen is flickering. I think what we should do is maybe like on your end through the go to meetings,
Yep.
just stop sharing and then share again. So I think there's some software issue.
So this is paused now. Should be paused. Maybe it's my video card too. I don't know. It could be something more
It should be
complex.
fine. Keep going. Let's see.
Okay, I'm playing. Just press play again.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason it's. God damn it! Ah, all those technical issues. I think in when you share, like if you stop sharing screen, you can actually choose Photoshop instead of like full screen from the
Uh,
window.
I can use Photoshop. You said?
Yeah, like in the go to meeting settings, it should be available for you to.
Maybe I can. If I screen share the monitor too, maybe. Oh, okay. Photoshop. Here we go. Tell me if that's better or not.
Let's see. Yeah, yeah, that works. That works better, I think.
Awesome. Still,
For sure works better. Actually, it's still Flickr. Ah, fuck it. Let's just move on. It's gonna be it's gonna be one of those episodes, guys, where things are just not working as they were supposed to. But all good, all good. It's better now for sure. Anyways, so I, I would like to like maybe let's go through your career a little bit. You know, one thing I wanted to ask you, and maybe related to like overall, you know, artist growth, is like how did you end up getting to be an artist in the first place? Like, what was your motivation? Where did it all started for you?
so, and actually, that's going to answer kind of the question that Nessie Ho is asking, which is what made me wanting to be a concept artist as a professional. So the thing to understand is that when I started originally, there was only one concept art school, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
because I was living in France, it was art center, you know, and because I was living in France, there was no way in hell that, I mean, it was just too far of a dream,
Yeah.
just as a fact that it was not going to happen for me, you know. So I guess my career, my path has been very complex and kind of topsy turvy, you know, where there was nothing really easy that came out of out of coming from Europe, basically, you know. And nowadays it's much easier, I would say, but at the time
Oh
it
yeah.
was really difficult. And there was no such thing as internet, you know, of course, when I started. And so what really started is what I've always loved more than anything, more than illustration, more than anything else, is design. I just
Right.
love beautiful things, you know. And so I started in industrial design back in France, you know, and that made my parents happy because with industrial design diploma you can get jobs, you know, that are maybe a little more than just uh, waiting tables or the things like in France at the time, especially like in the 90s, 80s, you know, parents will look at you and say, "You want to become an artist? What?" You know, and
Yeah.
that really like telling my parents that I wanted to become a bum as a life, as a job. You know, in France, people are not really still nowadays are not really getting the fact that you can become a professional artist and be someone respectable. You know,
Yeah.
and that's something that America has understood for years now. They see that you can make money, you know, with artists and also by being an artist. So, but for me at the time, when I was a kid, what I really loved was boats, sailboats. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my dad was sailing, and so what was really exciting to me is the idea of maybe one day I can become a boat designer. And so I
Right.
went into that industrial design school and I started learning. And then my mind, because I was working with other artists at the school, you know, and my mind started like to expand, you know, and I started seeing other things than just boats. And one thing that some of my friends made me realize is movie design, you know. And my dad really loved movies, and I think that was a way for me to try getting into something that my dad loved, just to get his approval. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Right.
So I mean, and as many artists know, the psychological factors are affecting as much as your desires, you know, and they are
Mm.
very linked to each other. So I think that's what got me first inspired into getting into concept art. But at the time, I had no idea that I would ever work on a movie ever, or even a video game at the time. That
None of
was
us
totally,
did.
yeah.
I remember when I started, I I've discovered that there's something like, hey, you can make money out of painting. When I saw a commercial for Tomek Baginski's Cathedral, it was like a
Hmm.
short film that was nominated to Academy Awards back in 2003, I believe. I was like,
Right.
wait, because they did like a little bit of a like show. They've showed what it is more or less,
Hmm.
like just the trailer, and they showed some behind the scenes as well. I was like, what? They're painting? What? They're using
Exactly.
computers to paint? Huh?
Yeah.
So that was because you know like probably yourself. I mean, when you were a kid, you were drawing a lot, right? Like you would pick up a piece of paper, and you were
Definitely.
just like probably drawn into it, and then you just like at some point you realize, oh, okay, this is actual career that you can pursue and go with.
Yeah, it
Um,
took a long time until I realized you could have a career out of it. Really, it
yeah,
took ages. It really started, and at first, I mean, I was fine doing it for free. I was like, just hire me. I don't care. Uh,
yeah, you want
so,
to get that experience, like,
so the
God
first
damn it,
experience
yeah,
was rough. I mean, actually, a lot of my first experience were pretty rough. And then
right.
started getting better with time. As I was getting better too. It was,
I think it's also back in the days, we just didn't have those resources, like, hey, let's ask this favorite artist of mine or watch that podcast with artists talking about what the business really is, and, be a little bit more informed than just going blindly into this whole thing. um, things definitely change. Like as you said, like you just didn't know that this is a career to begin with, and then like just from that predicament starting there, how would you even know that the business behind it? Like, oh, this is how much you're supposed to charge when you're decent enough to actually get a job and all that stuff. I think we're very similar in a way when it comes to that, because I come from Europe as well. I'm actually from even more shitty country back in the days, like behind the Iron Curtain, Poland, basically. So that was like years behind in terms of development and ideas of what you can achieve over there. And I think what probably helped you was you wanted to prove not only yourself but to your father that, like, hey, I'm gonna be an artist and I'm gonna do this, right?
in many ways, that's really what pushed me through the years at the beginning. It was like proving to my family that I could do something I loved and live well out of it. That was a really
Yeah.
big part of my motivation for sure. Yeah.
What do you think about the statement that I've seen it a couple of times. I've seen it back in the days a lot. I've seen it even these days a couple of times as well. Is like the starving artist, like
Yeah.
there's this statement, this weird idea that you're like you are a starving artist. What do you think about that?
Well, I think times have changed, first of all, and nowadays you don't necessarily have to be. If you have a little bit of, I mean, if you have a little bit of a taste, a little bit of talent, but most importantly, if you're a hard worker, uh, there's no more excuses. You have everything at hand,
Mm.
unless you live in a place that doesn't allow for, I mean, that allows for very little communication with the outside world, which, I've seen people, that were working in places like Iran, Syria, or stuff like that,
Yeah,
and that are, and there, I mean, it's totally different. I mean, it's totally different system,
of course.
but lucky where we are, we live in a place that lives at peace, that doesn't have a war yet, and
Yet.
but aside from that, I think nowadays eh, everything's possible if you are motivated, if you have enough money to buy gum rods, and everything's possible. I think.
Yeah, even on YouTube, there's so much stuff for free, isn't it? There's this one artist, for instance. I don't know if you've seen his channel. His name is Proco. He does like tutorials, like quick tutorials about anatomy, and he just
Yep.
like breaks it down. It almost reminds me Andrew Loomis and all of those guys that you would learn from the books and PDFs back in the days. I don't know if you remember like the Loomis books for
That was
figure drawing.
the only thing you could buy at the time when I was
Yeah, that's
was
true. But yeah, like there are definitely free resources. You're right. Like I've seen artists contacting me from Syria and from countries that are basically torn by war,
exactly.
and if they can manage and do art in those circumstances, for
That's exactly.
anyone who lives in Western world where you just like it's just probably the best time to live.
Yeah, there's
Honestly, there's no
zero.
wars, anything going on. The quality of living is probably the highest that's ever been. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no excuse. I agree with you 100%.
asking if 33 is too young, of an age. I don't believe that there is. I mean, there's very famous people that have made their their life, being very famous, and some people started at 40 years old.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think it's more a question of like how much time can you put in, and if you have a family and things like that, things thanks to to be slowed down or a lot, for example. As
For sure.
but if you have time on your side, I don't think there's any age limit. It's more like how much are you willing to sacrifice,
Yeah.
more than so
Yeah, when you have kids, it definitely changes.
it's like it just takes mileage,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
mileage, you're fine, if you can't, that's gonna become a little tricky.
So how did you end up having your first actual job?
So my first job was really, I got it in a very, very weird and uncomfortable way. That was back in France. That was probably 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And it was for a game company in France that doesn't exist anymore. And that's called Cryo. They used to do a very old school game on PC.
Hmm.
And so I was first hired as an intern. At the time I was a student in Holland. I was studying architecture. And then and they took me just for an internship, because you have to do an internship, when you're a student. So they took me for an internship, and I was very productive, and they were very happy with me. And what ended up happening is that they fired the two designers that were taking care of the project, and they hired me instead.
Hmm.
So it was a really weird, uncomfortable position where they fired my two bosses and they hired me. The producer was a dick. So it makes a lot of sense that he would have done that. Uh, Really, really uncomfortable for me, see my two bosses leaving and I stayed, and so that was my first job, and but it was the most horrible pay. I was paid nothing, really nothing, and I was doing a lot of work, and it was a movie about with Pamela Anderson.
Hmm.
That was the best movie that you've ever seen. It got released, but it's horrendous. And we had a model, Pamela Anderson, with like 60 polygons. You know, uh, it was just a massacre in the making. Anyway, so that was my first job, and to be honest, I wasn't lucky for a long time because a lot of the first job I had for I think for like 7 or 8 years, none of the project I worked on got released.
Oh
Uh,
man,
either
the
the
pain.
it was either the company bankrupted, or like the boss left with all the money, or and then like basically embezzled the whole company. I mean, that was my experience of video game. I mean, think of it. Nowadays, there's still a lot of charlatans, in games and movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was the wild, wild west. I mean, it was just insane. So anyway,
Yeah, it's a different era. I mean, internet and Twitter and Facebook, you can basically weed out the shittiest people out there. It's maybe different in film, I think, because it's more about connections and who knows who. Uh, Although on the other hand, like if someone is really shitty, especially on the lower positions, then that person probably never gonna work again, isn't it?
but that's the thing. There's a weird weeding. I mean, there's a great system that happens in the movie industry is that uh, there's so much pressure, on all levels that if someone really fucks up, you know,
Hmm.
then they're hired again. You know,
Yeah.
and, and that doesn't necessarily happen in smaller industries or industries that don't have the same kind of hiring necessities. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
in video games, it's much easier to slip through the cracks. I think
yeah, no, exactly.
productions are way longer. It's like 4 years, 3 years of making something happen, and like if you
And
fuck up, then usually it's just like they either forget or because there was so many people involved, things can get repaired and like blah blah blah. It's all that
Say
bullshit
that
basically.
in, like, I mean, working at Ubisoft in Montreal, I mean, there were, I think, like 1,000 people at the time, something like that. I mean, you can fall through the cracks much more easily than on I mean, on a movie art department, as you know, there may be like, I don't know, it depends on the project, but when you start on a project, it can be as little as just I don't know, 5 people.
Yeah, yeah.
You it. And then if you fuck up in that environment, if you're really a pain in the ass to work with, and well, I mean, that's it. Bye.
You get that screen from GTA, wasted. I should get a soundboard for that. Yeah, for sure. It's because you basically work with production designer or director or producer, and then it's just like this very, very direct conversation and interaction. If something goes wrong and you're really fucking up, then it's very apparent. It's a little different in games for sure, for sure.
It depends on the company. But
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I guess like smaller game companies, it will be much more difficult. But yeah, bigger game companies, it's like you can easily fall through cracks. There's like so many people there and the hierarchy of like corporate hierarchy basically makes it very easy to just do nothing and get by. Let's say it this way. But yeah, anyway, so you ended up in US at some point. We could go through the your career like basically step by step. I'm kind of jumping through, but the reason I'm jumping is just like there's some I guess pivotal experiences that you might have had in your life that I wanted to focus on maybe in the first place. Um,
sure.
I think maybe let's approach it from this angle. When I talk with a lot of artists about moving abroad and relocating to different places, it's usually like, yeah, this awesome job I got, and like, yeah, this great project and whatnot. Rarely ever anyone talks about the perils that come along with it.
Yeah.
Is that something you would want to talk about, or we can
It's
always
with it.
brush through
What that comes with it? Sorry.
like
I didn't understand.
perils, like the hardships and basically like all the things that no one talks about is like, hey, you're actually leaving your family and starting absolutely new life.
So I think it really depends on the people.
Mm,
Uh, on my side, I come from a family that was kind of pretty screwed up. The
right.
divorced parents. So I think that for me, it was my necessity and desire to live was almost more linked not only about my ambitions, but it was
Hmm.
also linked to the fact that I couldn't wait to get out of France. You know,
Right.
uh, when I lived in France, I really felt I felt unhappy. Okay, let's be super honest about it. France is a country that's beautiful and has everything for itself. The only issue with France is that everything is very set in their ways. There's very little flexibility.
Mm,
And as I said, people, when I was telling people that I wanted to become an artist, and maybe work on movies one day or something like that, people were looking at me like, yeah, right, well, good luck, dude, and call me when you're there, type thing.
right.
And very, very little hope for any ambition. And it was more like, well, okay, well, you're gonna design toothbrushes until you die, and which, by the way, I have nothing against,
Right.
but uh, but I think I had big dreams, and until I was gonna live those dreams, I think that I was not gonna be happy, and being able to escape from a place where I felt unhappy to me was very, very important. And at first, it was a little weird, but then when I became pretty much addicted to it.
Right.
I traveled from Holland to Canada to UK. I lived in UK for 3 years. So in the end, I think I needed it. And the downside to all that, as you're saying, is that yeah, you lose a lot. I mean, you lose a lot about your family, and you have regrets later, and you're like,
Mm,
wow, man, I've been there for when my niece was born and things like that. And I think that's more of what's happening nowadays. Now that I have kids, I'm starting to understand a little bit more what my family went through. You know,
right.
it was not easy times, and I think that all this is definitely affecting you in many different ways. And I know that, I mean, especially when my dad passed away, that was when I was on Tron at the time.
Mm,
Uh, I mean, I went to see him right before he passed away, and then I arrived back here in LA, and then one day after I came back, he passed away. And it was really tough for me not to be able to be at his funerals and things like that. And after that, for like I'd say a good 2 years, I was very depressed. And I think
right.
these are the price to pay that you're talking about. Is that there are times when you're ambitious and it's fun and all that stuff, but then you realize, why did I do that? Sometimes.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it can definitely be difficult. Yeah, as you said, everyone is different. Some people leave because like the opportunity is just too good to pass. Basically, that was for me. That was one of the things. I mean, I'm very driven by the idea of exploring something new and getting better opportunities, and then really just self discovery of how far I can go. But
yeah,
it's definitely a sort of like a difficult thing because you basically what happens is like it's almost like you leaving high school, where all right, so now I'm gonna have in this new place it's gonna be completely new friends, completely new life. My old habits and things that I used to do, they're gone. Sort of, I have to adjust to this new culture as well. So
and you accept the fact that you're going to be in a learning position as
yeah,
opposed to comfortable position. For
exactly. It's
yeah.
never comfortable, and just like even learning new country, like new laws and what do you have to do, social security, and all the differences that America, for instance, has compared to any of the European countries. Like it's kind of culture shock, isn't it? Like when you come here, it's still a Western world, but it's just so different.
I think it takes either to be a little courageous, or it takes to be just to be too young to understand what you're doing.
Yeah,
At the same time, I think as you become a concept artist and you there's like a job deformation that happens where as a concept artist that if you don't take risks, you're not going to move forward.
yeah, I
You
couldn't
know.
agree more. Couldn't agree more, my friend. What do you think? Do you think you said you weren't happy in France? Do you think the mentality has changed in the like all those years that you've been gone, or
So for a while, since I've had kids, with my wife, we were thinking, hey, maybe we should go back there and stuff like that, and maybe live there for a while or something. And so I asked my friends what they thought, if I should go back, and they said, dude, stay where you are.
all right, there you go.
They never told me, or it's not gotten any better since then.
Right, right,
So,
right.
and
I
I think
actually,
when we like our job, like we are,
hmm
I think it's not necessarily a good place to live in.
yeah. There's something I don't know if you agree, but I think as much as it might sound controversial, maybe not, but I think like there's something about being in the Los Angeles area that kind of makes you to have more opportunities just by the fact that you have that zip code in your address, don't you think?
There's no doubt, and that's why you see more and more young artists moving here, because they know that if you are on the spot, that's when you get hired. If
Yeah,
you're not, you're kind of far from for everybody, either here or Vancouver or places that nowadays afford more possibilities for work.
yeah, yeah. I mean, just the idea of hey, I can be in an hour on that meeting, face to face. I think that's what adds the value of being here. I remember because like in 2012, I actually moved back to Poland, and with the hopes that things changed. I
Yeah.
was so wrong. Things are changing there, of course. But it's still like the life that you experience when you move to United States or even Canada for that matter. It's just so different, and the opportunities you get as an artist, just even the environment you're in, the amount of like inspiration you get from artists that are around you, or if just the idea that hey, those guys live here, I can meet with them, and that energy that comes through when you see those all of those prolific people that are trying to get by and trying to really progress in art in general. It's just so inspiring to me. I don't know if you think the same way about that.
I totally agree. I know, I totally agree. Yeah, and you're talking about Canada, you're talking about France, and I think you're talking about America. I think there is more people are less beaten up. I think they're they're thinking, well, if we are in this together, we just keep going together.
Hmm.
Especially movie projects, people are like, well, we're all together on this, as opposed to France. Very often, it's more like, well, why are you working so hard? Are you trying to make me look bad, or what's wrong with you? And things may have changed, because it was many
Yeah, they
years ago.
do. They do.
But,
I think just the idea of you know internet and connections, and there's just no excuses anymore. If you're just trying to find an excuse like why are you working so hard, like are you trying to make me bad? No, I'm working hard because I
but
want to be better artist, and this is why, because you show ArtStation and you see like damn, there's so many great artists over there already,
exactly,
so
yeah, it's changed tremendously. Now, and you got to keep your game up.
yeah. For sure. Hey, how did you end up working on Tron? And because you worked with, did you work with Darren Guilford
That
or?
you worked with him too, so you know how he's like.
Oh yeah, he's the best.
I'm the luckiest man alive, I think, to meet that guy on my first project, because not all projects are the same. So what happened is that at the time I was working in video game in Austin, in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and the thing is that I think my first big crack was working on Assassin's Creed, and that really gave me a lot of advertising as an artist. And but what I really loved, I've always wanted to work on, was more science fiction stuff.
Right.
And I was not on when I had a website at the time, and I was posting nothing of my work on my website. I just kept doing what I loved. I just kept posting sci-fi stuff. At the time, I mean, now everybody's doing it, but at the time there was not many guys that were like me, and they were just posting like stuff like architectural stuff, or like I loved like modern architecture, and I was posting sci-fi stuff with a flair of modern architecture, and not many people were doing that at the time. So I know that he contacted me because he saw that work,
Mm-hmm.
and he thought that was original for a guy that likes robots and stuff like that to do stuff that are more architectural. So that's what got me hired on Tron. Um, that was kind of the beginning for me for the movie industry. Is that I was able to mix the things I loved, but also that I thought would be easily marketable
Right.
for a movie. It's a mixture of doing what you like, and also doing something that's marketable.
Yeah, I mean, knowing Darren as much as I know him just by working with him for a couple of months, I could totally see him being impressed by your work. It's just like his brain works like an artist's brain, like a actual true designer who sees the beauty in design in the first place rather than rendering. It's so easy to get fooled by beautiful renders these days, because everyone can do it almost. It almost seems like everyone can do awesome rendering, whether it's illustration or
But
3D.
nowadays, if you have a good HDRI engine, which is render, which either it's like I don't know, things like Keyshot or Octane or V-Ray, whatever. I mean, you can actually polish a turd. It's possible.
Yeah.
You can have something that's a 3D design, but that's really working well as a render. And depending on who's hiring, sometimes they don't care, you know.
Yeah.
They'd rather have anyway.
No, I agree. But it's like I remember again coming back to Siegen times. You were like one of those original guys, basically, because everyone would kind of sketch and try to, you know, almost feel like a lot of sketches that were posted there were sort of close to what Craig was doing. Like cool scenes and action scenes and all that stuff. You were one of not so many people that were just designing. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
I knew, and I still know that I can never be Craig Buttons, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but I am my own person. I have my own taste, my own taste, you know. And I thought, you know what? If I keep going in the road that I like, maybe I'll be hired for what I like, as opposed to be hired to be an imitation of someone that I can never be, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, your career already shows that that's the right move. I mean, when you just look at your resume, like, holy crap, dude. You've done a lot. A
I
lot.
think, and I think that that's true, but there's also a big part of chance, you know. When Darren contacted me, it was the right time for me. You know, I was separating from a very bad relationship, and I mean, he called me the day after I had that separation, and I was like, okay, this is a sign from the universe telling me get the fuck out of here, you know.
Hmm.
So
Well, some say everything happens for a reason. I've been reading the new book recently called "Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday,
that sounds
and
like my philosophy.
oh, dude, I think you would like that book a lot. But I think what I've read there is like becoming successful or finding opportunities. It's not like you will find, like, it's not like the opportunity will find you. It's more like how you're going to take an advantage of situation that happens in your life. And that's where most people shine, the people that are prolific and really grab life by the balls when something happens, especially when something bad happens and you can take advantage of it. That's where the really prolific people shine. And I think you're a great example of that, because it almost seems like every pivotal moments you had in your life were basically something happened that you weren't happy about, and then you did something to make it better, basically.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And the thing that we go through waves as well. You know, as artists, you progress, and sometimes you go through an up phase, and sometimes you go through a down phase. Sometimes you go through a pause, and being aware of that and accepting it. That's also sometimes a difficult part of it. You know.
Yeah. Just linking the book to the chat. Dude, the painting is awesome.
Oh God, it's horrendous.
No, dude, I like it.
The yeah, it's there's nothing like painting in front of people to
It's all
make you.
good. It's all good. I mean, we're having a conversation. It's like it's a little different when you talk and try to paint and all that stuff. So, and we also run into like freaking problems in the beginning. I'm always trying to get things better. I'm always trying to make the stream better. Adding new features and new audio and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, today I'm waking up like ready for the stream with you, like texting like, "Hey, I'm gonna be there in 10 minutes," and then getting online and nothing works. Like, fuck. Windows updates, yay. Um, yeah. So, I mean, we're gonna go to questions very soon, but there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is your film, Plug.
Yep.
What I wonder, what was the motivation and maybe the reason for you to go that direction and start making your own film.
So for me, it really came out of the inspiration I got from people like Darren Guilford. I mean, once again, I can't emphasize enough how inspirational Darren has been to me.
Hmm.
First of all, uh, and also Joseph Kosinski, who's the director, was a director on Tron.
Yeah.
Both those guys are so like have such a great attitude towards work, you know, and they're so relaxed about it, and I'm sure their life is anything but relaxed. but they are so, I know it's so communicative, the passion that they have for design, that I was really inspired after working on the set of Tron. I was like, this is amazing. I want to be able to do something like that too one day. And the things that I had dabbled before, with one of my friend, Baron Thierry Doison. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he lives in Canada. Him and I had started like directing small short film, and at the time it was with 16 millimeter, with DV cameras. It was a real nightmare. It was really, really, really difficult. So, and then suddenly there's a camera that came out that was a 7D. And
Mm.
I truly believe that inspiration and technology are linked really together.
Yeah.
Uh, and seeing that camera come up on the market, I was like, wow, I have no more excuses. This camera can shoot at film quality images.
Yeah.
So I bought a 7D, which it was really cheap. It's still cheap nowadays, at the time. And I was like, okay, let's make a movie. And it started at first. It was supposed to be just like a 2-minute thing, and then myself and a friend started writing it, and and it became 15 minutes, and it was more and more ambitious. And then there was a robot in it, and then all my money went into it. Long story, basically.
Passion. Passion make you
Exactly.
bankrupt.
Exactly. At the time, I didn't have kids or wife, so I was fine burning my money. Nowadays, it will be a different story. I don't think my wife would be too happy about that.
Of course. What? We need the money for diapers.
Exactly.
um, how long did you guys work on it? I mean, I've seen this going through for a while, but eventually you guys finished it. But I'm just
Yeah.
curious, because everyone's experiences in short films is different. But
So from start to finish, it took 3 years, 3.5 years.
wow.
Uh, yeah. So the shooting took 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but the thing is that the guy who was supposed to do VFX on the project got into a divorce, basically. So he was not available for a while. I was like, okay, well, I either give up on the project or I decide to do the VFX on my own, basically.
Right.
And I had never done VFX or anything similar. So I started looking online, like you say, on YouTube, and say, okay, how do you do VFX? And I had an understanding, having been on big project, know how it works, or stuff like that. But I had never done it myself.
Yeah.
So I started to learn how to rotoscope and all that stuff. It was hell for 3 years, basically.
God damn
Yeah.
it.
But I finished it, so it was all
But
worth
that's
it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, you were but here's the thing, like because you've learned it's like there's like a couple of layers I think to it. One is you've learned all those things to
Yeah.
begin with. So
Yeah.
now you have tools to use it. And I think I've noticed that shift when you always been active on social media and forums. You always been posting your newest work, or at least somewhat active.
Right.
But I've noticed like somewhere along when you were making the film, there was that shift where, oh, this guy is using 3D now. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, yeah. And the thing is weird with 3D is that I've been using 3D on and off through the years.
Hmm.
And there was a time I remember in video games when I was doing quite a lot of 3D, and then I realized, you know what, 3D is gonna come back to a level that's more usable, because at the time it was really hard to use,
Right.
in a way that's as flexible as painting. So I decided to switch to painting for a while. And then when I worked on a project, then I realized, well, now it's time to use those 3D skills back again and turn them into something, because I didn't have any choice, first of all. But then at the same time, what was interesting is that all that pain that I put into the short film, in a weird way, paid back into concept art in a major way. So
Yeah.
in some ways, I was very lucky to be forced to do that, because it really helped me into my concept art work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, anytime you learn something new, it just kind of adds to that perspective of,
Exactly.
hey, you can actually approach this subject from this way. Or maybe, hey, like this one thing that I usually end up sketching because I just
Yeah.
didn't know how to make look better. I can make it now completely realistic, with
That's
no
exactly
effort.
right.
So,
That's exactly right. And it's really a big shift in the concept art world. It's a huge shift. It's changing everything, basically. I really think so. First of all, it opened the doors to people that are actually coming from 3D to become concept artists.
Right.
If you look at Vitaly, if you look at Fausto, those guys that are incredible concept artists now, were probably more usually working from other people's concepts, but they
Yeah.
totally surpassed, a lot of concept artists because they were able to turn their talent into something that was more of a concept art. They were able to develop their skill set into something that was actual concept art.
Yeah, like the design, aesthetics that they've learned over years. Now because like the tools are so easy and fast, they can translate it like really quick
That's
into
exactly right.
actual realistic, well polished designs. And
Yeah, and
Vitaly
that,
is a beast. Holy shit.
and that goes back to what I was saying, is that it's concept art and art in general, I think, is always very intimately linked to with technology, you know.
Yeah.
And understanding that, accepting that. It's. I know that you're in the same boat that I am, right? Where you find yourself having to learn softwares. Every year, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Pretty
and
much.
physically.
Pretty
So
much. So always something new. Always like, hey, whoa, what is this Illustrator thing about? And hey,
exactly,
the new V-Ray is coming out, and
that's exactly right.
let's
Yeah.
try that. So, what do you think the industry is right now? I mean, I've spoke about this before, but I think it's just like never enough to say, how the industry is changing. And what do you think the concept art and entertainment is headed towards?
But I think there's a compression that's happening in the art department, particularly, where there is a mixture. The line is blurring actually between VFX and concept art in some ways, and modeling and compositing and things like that. And the trend that's going on right now, which is super obvious to me, is that people, especially directors and art directors, they want to see a final product.
Yeah,
They don't care anymore about sketches. And I think to me it was a survival to get into 3D as well because nowadays people want to see finished product. It's very rare to see directors, maybe the more old school ones, that are still interested in in just a basic line sketch. Or they want to see, okay, what's this gonna look like at the end of the movie when the movie is shipping, you
yeah.
know, because they can pitch the movie, they can. So I'd say that to me that's the biggest change that's happening right now in the industry.
Yeah, it definitely changes. I mean, yeah, as you said, there are some directors that still prefer sketches. There's some production designers like that too, where they like to look at, even some that prefer traditional work over
Yeah,
digital.
yeah.
Um,
It's becoming more and more rare, I would say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
through your projects that you worked on, and you've worked on a lot, like how many times you ended up having more success with 3D, for instance, than just 2D?
I'd say that since Prometheus, I think Prometheus to me was the big change in
Hmm.
terms of, because I would say I used to be like 80% painting, 20% 3D. I think Prometheus was the first project that I was on uh, that was 50-50. That was kind of the massive change that happened on Prometheus. If I hadn't had 3D, there's no way I would have been able to produce the
Right.
artwork. It was impossible because of the time pressure that we had. We were just working around the clock. It was just ridiculous. Very intense project.
Who's a production designer on Prometheus? Was it Ben?
No, 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 no. Ben actually was a concept artist with me on
Oh,
that project.
okay.
He was a
Yeah.
concept artist, and it was Arthur Max, who's
Gotcha.
been working with Ridley Scott for years.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Uh, I've noticed that people were asking and actually almost demanding for us to talk a little bit more about relationship between concept artists and
Yeah, yeah. I saw Patrick's post.
yeah,
Patrick Wasenter. Yeah, I
production
think we can
designer and
definitely talk
director.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, what are
So
your
it,
experiences about that? Yeah, I can
so it
I can set mine, but would like to hear yours.
So it's really dependent on the team. Every director comes up with a specific production designer that they like to work with usually,
Mm-hmm.
and the relationship with the artist changes tremendously between the different type of styles. You have the old school type. Like for example, Ridley Scott. I think was one of my best experience in terms of working with director because the guy loves art, and he's around. He doesn't hide from the artist. What I've
Yeah.
experienced with other directors that some directors are not comfortable, staying around with the art team, and they prefer to hide a little bit from it and let the production designer just lead without really communicating to the artist.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, at least as a concept artist, what I love is to also have the contact of the director because first of all, I mean, they are my heroes, and I think there's something that's very exciting about talking to a director directly and hear his vision, and be inspired by that vision.
Yeah.
And also some production designers may be a little more uncomfortable with that, maybe because they're a little more insecure, and they're not necessarily gonna accept that connection between you and the director, which makes it, I think, very difficult to create like a proper design personally.
Yeah, you have to be really political at times when it comes to this, especially depending. Yeah, I guess it depends on the art department and who you're working with, for sure. Did you had more experiences working with production designers or directors? Like, what was your work like so far?
Uh, I think most of the time I work with a production designer.
Mm-hmm.
If it's at the beginning of a project, like a pitch mode, it's be more with the director. Sometimes there's not even a production designer attached to the project.
Right.
Um, so it really varies, It really varies depending on the project. But I'd say that generally, what happens is that you get called by the production designer, and then you start working on the movie if you're available,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but sometimes it's just the producer contacting you to do a pitch. You know.
Yeah, that happens often too, where it's just like a producer that holds the rights to make that specific movie. It's like, yeah, let's get some cool art so we can sell it to the studio. This is where it usually starts. Sometimes it's actual directors too, where
For sure.
director wants to make a specific movie and we'll hire an artist and yeah, let's do this together. I think it was for me it was very similar with Ghost in the Shell like that because really on Ghost in the Shell I started working with Rupert directly and almost throughout the film towards the end he was I would interact more with production design and art directors because obviously directors get so busy towards the end. It's just
For,
insane. It's the insane amount of work that they have to deal with. But majority of my work was through Rupert, and I've enjoyed the shit out of that time because he's such a fun guy to work with.
sure.
Yeah, he's very artistic and very visual driven, almost like Kosinski.
Yeah, totally. I think to be a big director, especially in sci-fi stuff or like in superhero stuff, you gotta be a little bit of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it can be political. I mean, it's probably not as political. Well, maybe in a way, as in video games. In video games, it's like just there's more layers to it because like you have those designers and animators and programmers, and everyone wants to prove themselves to be the shit and then
Yeah,
like argue and whatnot. Here is more like direct. Like, all right, I have those two people to deal with, or maybe three people to deal with, and it's almost sometimes can be a
yeah,
dance, but if you play
I
it
totally,
right,
yeah, I totally agree with you. I found it much less political actually in movies than in video games.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
the thing is that in movies, I think directors understand that it's important to protect the artist from politics, yeah,
Mm.
because it doesn't help anybody, I think.
No, never.
Uh, but the thing is, in video games, they don't realize that politics can kill creativity and stuff like that.
It's always ego, man. It's always just someone has this idea that I am the shit and you aren't, so why would I listen to you? Or hey, let's make it my way or highway. I
Yeah,
I and there's no room for that in film, I think. I mean, it still happens time to time, but it's usually just because so much is on the line and the budgets can be blown out of proportion if just one person starts fucking up, then a lot of things can go wrong. um
like you say in movie, the difference is that it's a question of complexity of parameters.
yeah.
There's so many parameters that can go wrong in a movie, and you learn that when you do a short film or so, your
Yeah.
own project. Is that it's a miracle that movies get made still.
Yeah, yeah. How was your experiences on set? I mean, you've been on couple already, right?
But, I mean, when you're a concept artist on set, you just shut up and enjoy the experience, and make sure you're not in the way. that's,
Yeah, you're
that's
not
mostly what
tripping
it's
over
about.
cables and
That's
getting into
exactly
the
right.
shot.
That's exactly right.
I was
So
on the set only once, but it was just for me. It was mind blowing how much is going on, and you kind of get like this newfound appreciation to filmmaking, even if the film ends up being a shitty one. You still sort of like admire it at least for the amount of effort that at the end of the day just had to come in to make it happen, right?
completely,
Yeah.
completely. And someone is asking, like, physically, like, how we do to work for hours and physically stay fit and stuff like that. So I had really a lot of massive back problems due to work and also life in general. Life happens. And now I have to work standing up, otherwise I just die of pain in my back.
Mm.
So and I think
Standing
someone
desk
mentioned,
is the shit, man.
yeah, that's really, I advise it to everybody nowadays.
I have
Yeah,
a standing desk too, like at my home, but I'm
yeah,
just sitting right now. For whatever reason, I thought it was a great idea to sit till 4 a.m. and paint instead of getting some sleep. So right now I'm just too tired to stand.
yeah.
But yeah, standing desk that definitely helps. It's just, I mean, you have to keep your posture and working out, even going for walks is a good idea. If you're not working out, just having like a half an hour, 40-minute walk, that's already good.
I totally agree. And I was doing great until I had kids.
Because then you run out of time and
Exactly.
it's like, should I go to work out or maybe cuddle with my kids? Like,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
God, yeah, you run out of time real quick. That's for sure.
Yeah. And is my wife gonna kill me because I'm gonna do some exercise as opposed to helping her?
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, we need fucking lunch and dinner. Go cook.
Exactly.
We need to
Exactly.
clean this and that. Yeah, it's kind of
Oh yeah.
interesting. I mean, you could talk about kids for like
Yeah.
hours and hours, but I think one thing you learn really quickly is just like your life turns upside down and the amount
Completely.
of responsibility just that come like you just expect it's going to be difficult, and
Yeah.
then you get hit by a truck, and then the train rides over you, and
That's
then you
exactly right.
realize that's it's just the beginning. So
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's a perfect description. Funny because every day, you know what I keep thinking about? I keep thinking, oh, when I used to be just a concept artist, I used to be really good at this, this, this.
yeah,
And now I'm really good at changing diapers, not smelling poop when it really stinks. I'm really good at preparing a bottle of milk, you know.
yeah,
I'm
that's
really good at
important. You
things
have
that
to steer it really well and make sure that it's sterilized and everything. So
exactly. And I'm really good now at stuff that doesn't bring me any money.
well,
Uh,
it brings the smiles at
oh,
least once.
definitely.
So at least
Definitely.
one smirk can
Yeah.
change everything.
Oh yeah, no, I'm extremely happy with my family. I feel very lucky. Very,
Awesome,
very
dude.
I'm
All right,
lucky man.
let's get into questions. Let's answer a few and wrap it up. I don't want to hold you up. I know you have a lot of work to do.
Yep.
So cool. I'll just go through the few. First one that was asked here on the channel was is it beneficial to learn game engines like Unreal, CryEngine to concept artists to have high quality concepts, or is it too much work?
Uh, so first of all, it depends where you're trying to go and what type of project you're trying to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think every discipline, I mean, it used to be for concept artists, it used to be you just know how to paint, you just know how to draw, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You know. Now, I would say that things have changed tremendously. Depending on where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve, I think at some point in your life, yeah, you will probably have to be able to use those projects. If you work in games, and if I was working in games as much as I used to, I would definitely learn game engines
Yeah, it
because,
helps.
well, yeah, and when I was working in games, I used to know perfectly the game engine I was working with, and what it allowed me to do is to directly upload volumes into the engine, walk around, see what it looks like, and stuff like that. And I think you do have an upper hand onto people that are telling you that things are not feasible. For example, you may have a game designer tell you, no, you can't do that. It's not going to work. Or even 3D modeler sometimes. You just go in there, you do it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
populate the scene inside the engine, and even if it's just like unbearable, I mean, a skilled game artist or just generally the team will be able to decipher. All right, so this is what you did. It looks really cool. Maybe there's something we can salvage out of it, and that's already, it's removing quite a few steps for others.
Exactly. And the other thing I would say is that movies are changing right now tremendously as well.
Yeah,
And they are, VR is coming at a speed of light right now, and I do believe that VR is going to be a part of what could future concept artists have to deal with, or even nowadays,
yeah,
And I think the best way to be prepared for that is to understand the technology behind it, to be ahead of everything else. So I would say that it's not the first thing you should know about. I think that still think that classical, like painting, drawing, or being able to be very, very good with a tool, whether it's 3D or 2D,
hmm,
honestly, nowadays it's not as important anymore. But I do think that learning a tool very well so that you can be very, very good at it, whether it's 2D or 3D, I think is still very, very important. But uh, but I think it's game engine. I would say right now is still secondary, but things may change. I mean, you may be able at some point to really create concept art in a game engine. I totally believe in that. I've seen people do it, and I think if before you get there, you gotta know some basics about design, some basics about drawing. I think it will help tremendously.
yeah.
I would
Knowing foundation is like it's never gonna hurt you. It can only make things better for you. You know. Second question was if I'm starting to learn anatomy and concept art and perspective and all at the same time, but at the same I need to fasten the process. So what do you suggest? Is so basically it's just like I guess trying to find a route where to go with.
So the best way to work at that is to understand, especially if you're early in the in your work, is uh, is to understand that it will take you mileage. But not only it will take you mileage, it will take you smart mileage.
Mm,
You know. So to me, the best way to learn something is to have a plan. Is to say, you know what, my plan is to do this for 2 months, this for 1 month, this for 4 months, this for 5 months. And if you can even package it into your own project, that's even better. So that's what I say by working smart, is the fact that you will have a plan of attack in the way you're going to learn. The
right.
same way that the same way people plan a movie or just plan your life, basically. Just say, you know what, that's what my life is going to be for this year. I want to be a badass and work into this kind of industry. This is what it's going to take me. And it's going to take me to be very organized and very disciplined about learning things. And so you can start, okay, well, I'm going to do 3 months of just anatomy if I want to become a concept artist that
Yeah.
designs, you know. So I'm going to do this practice. I'm going to practice for 3 months, and then I'm going to learn ZBrush for 3 months, and then I'm going to mix exercises. So be creative with your learning path, basically. That's what I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. How do you make connections as a young artist when most of the people ignore you?
Go to conventions. I mean, it really makes a huge difference. I mean, nowadays there's conventions everywhere. Everybody and their grandmothers do conventions. And you can meet artists in a way that's so much easier than it used to be. I mean, it's really changed, and there's no excuse once again now to not do it. So I would say go to convention, go to THU, uh, go to all the conventions you can. I'm gonna be in Berlin and UK and London in June. I'm doing a workshop with Bobby Chiu.
Mm-hmm.
I love Bobby Chiu. He's a really awesome guy.
Yeah, Bobby is awesome.
So I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be in Europe if you guys want to meet me in Europe. At the end of the year, I'm gonna be in Portugal for THU.
Oh, oh,
I
good to
don't know.
know. Good
I
to know.
think it's official yet. People probably don't even know about it yet. So
Well, now
that's
they
gonna be.
know. Breaking news. Art Cafe. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. I'm joking.
So
do you
I would
remember?
say,
Do you remember
yeah.
that times where there was only like massive black workshops and nothing else.
Yeah, times
Dude,
have changed. Yeah.
so different, so different
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that nowadays, the great thing about nowadays workshops that you, as an artist, you're really well taken care of. You know, people really cater to you and are very careful. And there's no such thing as VIP thing or whatever. You just everybody is mixing together and learning together. I mean, those workshops now are really cool. It's really enjoyable for
Yeah.
everybody, not just anyway. So I just wanted that was my little rant about that.
No, I agree. I mean, when you go to live events, it's so different when you have that face-to-face conversation with people. Because like for instance, let's say you David, right? You have family, you have work, you have your daily chores, like there's just so much going on in your life. And then you get you want to meet with friends and relax and maybe play some games, and then you get like hundreds of messages on Facebook. It's granted that probably majority of it, whether you like it or not, you're gonna ignore because you're just running out of time. So it's a little different when you meet an artist on the actual event, because that artist's time is dedicated towards that event, which means for an artist there's no excuse to ignore you in most cases, unless that person is an asshole, which happens too. But in majority of cases, from my experience, it's like artists are really open during those events because that's where they have time that is not obstructed by anything else, basically.
You know, yeah.
Ahmed Taha asked about Scott Robertson books, How to Draw. I would say anything that has Scott Robertson name on it is fucking awesome. So, let's see if we have more questions. I would probably go through maybe two more, and then we can wrap it up. Um, this gonna be interesting. Mache and David, do you guys deal with diets and healthy lifestyle? I've been sleeping around 6 hours top lately and eat things that are made quickly, pasta, cereal, pizza, in order to do art.
Yes. I've had health troubles due to my work, and I've changed my diet. I'm vegan now, actually. I don't eat meat anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this came out of really health issues that were directly related to my diet. So, yes, I would say that it's a very important part if you want to live a long life and as a concept artist and do artwork for a long time. I'd say it's very important. Yes.
Yeah, I would say there's, I mean, there is so much research about this. What are there's different diets, and you can go vegan. It's a very healthy one. If you do it right, obviously too. Um, there's
Yeah.
there's there are meat diets that can be right. I would say if you can avoid meat that is factory produced, like the factory farming, that's the best, because that's probably not even healthy at all. There's just more antibiotics and hormones in it than
I think
actual protein,
okay.
if anything. So it's probably actually, and it's horrible. It's just horrible. Let's not get that bad actually. But generally, any kind of healthy diet that avoids any types of sugars, like if you can avoid sugar in the first place, you're already at the good start. If you can move yourself at least for walks and have any kinds of exercise, that's even better. And if you combine those two, that's probably best for you. There's this thing that happens, is that your brain and your gut are connected, and
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
have a really healthy lifestyle, you're gonna have not only much more energy for just doing anything, you're just gonna be so much more creative because your brain is fueled by what's in your gut. That's how
You
it works, basically.
will make shit.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where you make shit too. So literally and figuratively. So that's true. It's so true. All right, let's get this one as a last one. I'm sorry for you guys for not answering all the questions. We're just running out of time. That's also my fault. Um, Mache, David, you've been artist for years. What kind of hacks you discovered to make your to make hacks to discover to work more comfortably, to avoid back pain, and so on and so on? I guess it's health related, but I would say might be also a question towards like anything else.
Really, I mean, working on a standing up desk really made a huge difference for me.
Do you think there are any hacks towards making your general workday more comfortable in terms of projects and whatnot?
Uh, yeah, if you're a disciplined person, yeah. I'm not always very disciplined, so it's just very hard sometimes to really make it better. Sometimes just the nature of the job, it's very intense. You know,
Yeah, it can
sometimes.
be. It can be.
So just accepting that you're never gonna be in a perfect situation. I think that's just the reality of it. Just do as much as you can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, standing desk, absolutely, it helps. I would say mix it up. You should sit sometimes, not to get too tired too. But standing desks help. There's no shortcuts for art. You kind of have to go through the grind. Um, I would say I don't know if you agree with me, but it's kind of like related to comfortability, like comfortable working comfortable. I would say is the idea of try to create art that you're really excited about because what you have in your portfolio is what you're gonna be hired for, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything good yet, don't post anything. Maybe. I mean, because you will get hired by projects that are not as good.
Mm.
Uh, it's really a tricky thing, and sometimes I struggle with it. Sometimes I'm like, well, should I post this? Or the people are gonna think that that's the kind of stuff I want to do, even though it's a project I didn't like. But maybe it's the portfolio part is really tricky. One that I struggle with sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that whatever you post is that's what you're gonna get hired for. And sometimes it's like, fuck, man, I'm working on this new stuff that is really cool, and I prefer doing this, but then I get hired for that The Last of Us concept art again and again and again. You know what I mean?
It's like an actor. Once you've been cast into something,
Yeah,
you're the same thing.
I agree. I agree. Anyways, all right, let's wrap it up. I've been holding you up for way too long. I think it's my fault because my systems just crapped on me. That happens too, but managed to get it work and get it up all working. So I hope we you know no more hiccups from now on. But dude, it was awesome to have you on and catch up with you. We're gonna meet this week to catch up some more. But dude, thanks for your time and thanks for answering all the questions and being here with us. And I'm pretty sure everyone else appreciated um, whoever joined us today. And
Other questions, they can message me on Facebook or whatever.
exactly. So yeah, thanks a lot for being here. And hey guys, one thing that I wanted to mention is we just started the thing that you've been asking for, basically, which is a Patreon. So if you want to support what we do here, the show, just feel free to go here. I'll actually post it on a chat. There we go. Boom. Yeah, it's any support will help us to make this thing better. I've invested quite a lot of my own funds to basically have better hardware and make as many of those episodes as I can. And if you want to be part of something bigger, just go ahead and just join and help us out. If not, it's still gonna remain the same. I'm still gonna invite awesome guests and have them live with you guys and all that stuff. So anyways, let's wrap it up, guys. And David, again, thanks for being with us. And whoever is watching this after it's being live, thanks for watching the whole thing. And till the next one,
So much.
peace.
Thanks a lot, guys.